Okay, so let's talk about how to add and manage a credit card within YNAB. Now, if you have a credit card with a balance on it and you're actively making payments or trying to pay it off, but you're not using that credit card, in other words, you're not going to go buy your groceries or buy your gas or anything like that on the credit card. It's just there and you're paying it off. Just put it under tracking. Put it as a tracking account, as a liability, which I'll show you in a second. But if you're actively using it, if you use it for regular expenses, then you're going to want to put it as an on budget account. So let me show you how to do that. So I'm going to click add account. Now for this specific example, I'm just going to do it as unlinked, just so I don't have to worry about connecting, but you can connect your credit card. So unlinked. Again, if you're just tracking a debt, like a credit card, but you're not using it, put it under here, under tracking and liability. That way you're just going to be watching it and then making payments to it. But if you're actually using it for transactions, we're going to do it this way. So under on budget, you're going to choose credit card. You're going to give it a nickname. And then you're going to put in whatever your current account balance is. Now, if you aren't sure, you can just hit 0, or you can estimate, you can fix it later, or you can, if you're importing it, it will actually import your current balance. So let's say I have a $5,000, oops, sorry, don't put negative, just $5,000 balance on the credit card. Because this is a credit card, it knows that it's negative, right? It knows that I owe $5,000. I'm going to click next. And then it says your credit card has an existing balance. Choose how to budget for the balance. So it wants you to start thinking about it. You can create a goal to pay it off over time. You can budget to pay the entire balance every month, or you can just skip this and you'll have your own ability to control how much you budget for it. If you budget for entire balance, that category for credit card payment will always update based on what the balance is. So I'm going to click skip this for now because I want to show you how you can control this yourself. And we're going to click next and we're going to click done. Now, what it normally does is it creates automatically a credit card payments category within your budget. Okay. Again, it's showing you that when you pay something in the off a credit card, it will put it into that category. So let me show you exactly what happens there. So I'm going to go to the credit card and I'm going to add a transaction, and I'm going to say that I went to Kroger, which is groceries, and I spent $150, and I'm going to click save. So I spent $150 in at Kroger for groceries. Now I have not, oops, it's January. So there's that $150 right there. And I'm going to say, I haven't put in my budget. So I've put in my budget. Okay. So I put in my budget for groceries. I spent $150, but I spent it on the credit card. Do you see that? And so what it's basically saying is you need to make a payment to the credit card. See that? So $150 set aside for payment. So why does it do that? Well, that's because YNAB doesn't want you to be in debt, right? YNAB wants you to know, hey, you spent $150 on your credit card and you still need to move that. Because here's the thing, when you spend $150 on your credit card, you technically haven't spent $150, right? You still have money in your checking account. You haven't actually made that payment yet. You haven't actually spent cash yet. And so until you spend the cash, the money is still there. You're just more in the negative on your credit card. So let me show you then how to, let's say, I'm actually going to do a couple other things. Let's say my electric bill was also $150. And let's say that you're the kind of person who puts all of your bills on your credit card. And so there's $150 to the electric company, and we hit save. Come back to the budget and you'll see now there's $300. So essentially this is a quick and easy way to keep track of how much total you have spent on the credit card that month, while still making sure that all of those individual transactions are categorized correctly. So now we say, hey, we've spent $300 on the credit card. I want to pay that off. So go into your checking account. Obviously, YNAB doesn't control your bank, so make sure you actually go and make the payment. But you'll go into the checking account on YNAB and type in transfer and click to credit card. Anytime you transfer between budgeted accounts, you don't have to give it a category. This will actually happen auto-magically, as YNAB likes to say. So we're going to pay that $300 out of checking and into the credit card and click save. Payment, and you see it says payment, credit card. We come back over here, 0. So essentially, it is making sure that you keep track of what did you spend on the credit card and what still needs to be paid based on what you have spent. If I come in here and I add a transaction of interest accrued, then a lot of people will actually create a category for interest, which I don't think I actually have in here. So we can add a category. We can put it under debt payments, interest and fees, save. And let's say that I accrue $10.24 of interest. Okay, back to budget. It's not going to see that here, right? Until I budget for it. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to budget for that $10.24. And there it goes. It knows I need to make that payment to the credit card. Okay. So as long as things get budgeted for and categorized appropriately out of your credit card, this payment line will keep track of how much you need to pay in order to get yourself down to 0. Now, again, you can always move and drag. So if you don't like that credit card payment thing being up at the top, you can drag it down to the bottom, drag it back all the way to the top. Wherever you want it is fine. But that just helps you keep track of what has come out of the credit card that has not yet actually been paid. Again, if I come in here and I transfer to the credit card and I transfer $10.24, save, then I no longer have a payment to make because I'm caught up paying everything. Now, let's say I decide I want to make an extra payment to the credit card. So I've got some extra cash and I want to make a $500 payment. Back to budget. You can see this is saying, hey, you overspent. Well, that's because I didn't budget for any extra. So what it had on there before was just the money I had already used and budgeted for elsewhere. Now this is additional. And so I'm going to have to budget specifically for the extra that I want to pay to the credit card. Does that make sense? So that's how to manage and use a credit card. Again, if you're not actively using the credit card, then just put it under tracking and track your payments under debt payments, like a credit card payment down here. But if you're actively using it, YNAB is going to automatically create this account for you, or this category for you, to help you track what payments need to be made based on what you've spent. So I hope that's helpful. The reason I like to do it this way, if you're actively spending, is because if you put it as tracking, then you just transfer money from your checking over to tracking. You have to categorize that. And then you have to split it up of how much of it was groceries and how much of it was this. It's way easier if you're actively using your credit card to categorize the things as they happen and then simply use this payment category to know what needs to be shifted over to be able to keep track of it that way. This interest and fees, if you are actually actively paying off your credit card balance every single month, which this line will help you do, you shouldn't be accruing any interest and it shouldn't be a problem. But that's why I added that, because in case you do, especially if you had a large balance to begin with, that is a way to keep track of making sure those interest and fees get paid as well. All right, I hope that was helpful.